Imagine you're a soldier in the U.S. Army during the Revolutionary War. You're beginning to lose hope. Correction, you've lost nearly all your hope. You're going up against the strongest military force in the entire world, and surprise, surprise, they're beating your army into the dirt. Think you and your army has what it takes to prove the underdog can come out on top? That's exactly what ended up happening. I'm here to teach you all about the highlights of the American Revolution. Without them, it would pretty much be a total failure. These events are the Battle of Saratoga, the winter at Valley Forge, and the Battle of Yorktown. So, after the American Army had their first real victory in Trenton by raiding a bunch of Hessian Christmas parties and taking them prisoner, they were pretty pumped up. Both the US and British ended up updating their strategies after realizing their old one just wasn't going to cut it anymore. Ready to follow through with the new plan, British General Burgoyne started heading down to Albany to conquer the Hudson River with his buddy General Howe. Didn't really work out, though. Their route seemed easy until he actually started taking it. Yeah, he was probably doomed. Howe, on the other hand, had his own plans, so he went to Philadelphia first to lure George Washington into a big fight scene. That didn't really work out for him either. By the time Burgoyne the Slow reached the Hudson River, there were quite a lot of U.S. troops, so he did what the British did best: attack! Turns out that wasn't what they did best, since they kept getting beat up more and more until Burgoyne made the sensible decision to give up and accept defeat. Turns out America isn't hopeless after all, said the French, joining the U.S. in the fight against the British. Later on, Washington took his army on a field trip to Valley Forge, Pennsylvania to spend the winter. This was quite the location to pick. The British were also camped in Pennsylvania. It was a perfect place to spy on them and not get surprise attacked. But the army wasn't exactly paid much, so a lot of them ended up with no clothes or food. Washington said, "This is fine, we're all fine. You know why? We have Baron Friedrich von Steuben." Who's Baron Friedrich von Steuben? Oh, he's just the #1 Prussian volunteer Washington put in charge of training the army to distract them from just how terrible everything was. And you know what? It actually worked. The army got stronger and actually good at fighting. That was a first. Also during this time, French volunteer Marquis de Lafayette heads on over to Valley Forge and donates a lot of his money toward food and supplies for the army. Because, he's a good person that happens to be rich. We really needed that. Now their stats have leveled up. All of this really comes in handy during the Battle of Yorktown. This took place in, Yorktown, Virginia. British General Cornwallis's base was here, so the summer before this, Washington and French General Rochambeau planned a big attack on him and the army quartered there. But Yorktown was very close to the water. Cornwallis would have an easy escape. Not so fast, that's where the French come in. On that day, Washington ordered a bunch of naval French troops to block Chesapeake Bay with their big boats. Uh-oh, looks like Cornwallis just got trapped. Can't quite escape now, huh? Then he ordered his right-hand man Alexander Hamilton along with Marquis de Lafayette to lead 5,000 American troops to block Cornwallis's escape by land, which works out pretty great. Now the British can't do anything. Now that the advantage is turned over to the Americans, they began bombarding the British non-stop for 3 whole weeks. Cornwallis was pretty stubborn. He didn't just want to give up and accept defeat, but with constant attacks for 3 weeks with nowhere to go or get help from, your resources get stretched pretty thin. So Cornwallis begrudgingly sent a guy up to a parapet to wave the big white flag of shameful surrender. Everyone was pretty happy about that, especially the Americans. Even the British were relieved. There wasn't much cause left to be fighting this war, so they were glad it was finally over. Cornwallis wasn't too pleased, to say the least. Olive. He was too ashamed to attend the formal surrender ceremony, so he had his second-in-command carry his sword there. Later, King George III found out and threw a bit of a temper tantrum about his perfect little army losing his imperfect little colony. Peace agreements and arrangements began in 1782, and in 1783, the Treaty of Paris was signed, saying, "Hey, now that the British have no control of the USA, it's an independent country now. Huzzah." Guess what? Now you've won, so huzzah indeed! But turns out turning a colony into an independent country is easier said than done. What'll happen next? Tune in next time on the Shenanigans of Washington and the Rebels to find out.